We have so much to discuss here. Starting us off, MS Now Justice and Intelligence reporter Ken Delaney and Hofstra University law professor James Sample here on set with me, who focuses on constitutional law and democracy, and chief Washington correspondent at Midas Touch and host of Scott MacFarlane Reports, Scott MacFarlane. Ken, starting here with Todd Blanche, walk us through what exactly he's promising on this anti-weaponization fund itself. Should we consider this dead for real this time?
Well, here's the thing. So he's issued this statement. He's calling it an order, but it's not really an order, on essentially from the Justice Department saying that, look, we've said this fund is no more, and now we're saying it in writing. But it doesn't have the force of law, obviously. And as John Cornyn masterfully pointed out, the senator from Texas who was one of the holdouts here, while he was questioning Todd Blanche during his confirmation hearing, only a change to the settlement agreement would actually have the force of law to alter the terms of the agreement. And that's not what this is. There's no change to the settlement agreement. There's no signed agreement between the parties saying that, in fact, there is no more weaponization fund. And remember, this came from a settlement between Donald Trump and the federal government over the IRS claims. And so absolutely, even if Blanche is right and there is no further, there's no creation of this $1.8 billion weaponization fund, there's nothing to preclude the Justice Department from using the settlement fund that it uses to settle cases under normal circumstances from settling other claims by January 6th defendants. Or, for example, I just did a story about Donald Trump pardoning 2 police officers who covered up a murder. They are now suing the Justice Department for malicious prosecution. They could settle for millions of dollars. There's nothing that prevents the DOJ from doing that in any of these documents. And that is the concern here, that this is really smoke and mirrors and that this thing is not actually going away. They're just going to do it in a different fashion, Ariel.
Yeah, there seem to be quite a few loopholes here. I want to play what Trump said on Sunday himself, hinting that they may resurrect the fund.
These people were attacked, and this would be a reimbursement for the pain that they suffered. A lot of people like it. If they don't approve Todd, I put it back on the table. A lot of people like it. A lot of big supporters of Trump like it.
So, Ken, how much stock should people put in the fact that this agreement has been signed by Todd Blanche, given the fact that the president is intransigent on this?
I think it's pretty clear that Blanche has now staked his reputation on the fact that there will be no formal weaponization fund, this $1.8 billion slush fund, as some people called it, with, a group of overseers systemically handing out money to people who claim weaponization. But again, that does not, clearly Donald Trump wants some of these people to get paid. This agreement, this statement by Todd Blanche does not preclude the Justice Department from paying some of them on an individual basis. Perhaps it won't be as efficient as a $1.8 billion fund, but the thing with the settlement fund is that it allows the Justice Department to pay out settlements without approval from Congress. That loophole has been on the books for decades, and they can still take advantage of it, Ariel.
So, James, how credible and legally binding are these assurances from Todd Blanche?
Well, first, to Ken's point, the government has been paying out settlement funds since 1870 in cases where there is a meritorious basis for doing so, and in cases where otherwise it would cost the government more or would be counterproductive to litigate those cases. The problem here is that this was never a case in which there were adverse parties. This was a case in which the president, in essence, settled with himself. But as to your question about credibility, think about this. The way that the phrasing in this particular order or document, if we're going to call it that, because it's not really an order, is phrased. It says that this is how the Department of Justice is going to interpret its ability to interpret its own ability to have this fund. It doesn't say that the president, it doesn't say that the president's lawyers, it doesn't say that others can't pursue that compensation that was otherwise out there. So to a certain extent, I think this is a very cute way of securing the judiciary confirmation process without actually pledging anything that is, and it's certainly not legally binding, in the way that a subsequent contract can supersede the prior one. Or you might draft a will, and then at a later point, you decide to change the will. The problem with this all along was there was never adversity.
The tax immunity piece of this is really what's perked up a lot of ears. Our Lisa Rubin notes that tax experts say that this may be unlawful. Does Blanche have the authority to grant this tax immunity legally? And what does it say to you that Blanche's signature isn't even on that part of the document?
Yeah, the fact that there were two documents last night that were released and that one had a signature and one did not was a glaring discrepancy. The first thing to note is that the IRS reports to the Department of Treasury, and the IRS all along said that there were defenses in the underlying violation of privacy, the release of Trump's tax records to that case, most notably a statute of limitations defense. And the IRS is not on that immunity agreement. From Donald Trump's perspective, for a lot of very good reasons, the slush fund and the idea of taxpayers paying out money to people who attacked the Capitol was always the headline. But from Trump's perspective, the carrot was always the tax immunity.